Good morning, everyone. My name is Reverend Emily Bruce, and I am delighted to be the guest preacher in your pulpit this morning. So thank you so much for having me. I am an old seminary friend of Reverend Dave, and we have done this once before, so I'm delighted to support him and his sabbatical, and probably will ask him to do the same thing for me next year. So I serve our congregation in Kingston, Massachusetts, which is down on the South Shore near Plymouth, and thank you again for welcoming me here today. And now I'm going to invite Patty forward to light our chalice.
This chalice is for the living, the changing, the becoming. This chalice is for losing the script of your life, the chapters about who you are in other people's stories. This chalice is for the lost GPS that was supposed to show how you could get where they expected you to go. This chalice is for skipping the directions, coloring outside the lines, painting not by number, but by silence, by wild abandon, with a brush you made yourself, from light deep inside, startling, vivid, a new voice that already knows you. Finally, a true story. Come, let us worship together.
Friends, as our worship begins, hear these words by Richard Gilbert. We meet on holy ground, brought into being as life encounters life, as personal histories merge into the communal story, as we take on the pride and the pain of our companions, as separate selves become community. How desperate is our need for one another, our silent beckoning to our neighbors, our invitations to share life and death together, our welcome into the lives of those we meet, and their welcome into our own. May our souls capture this treasured time. May our spirits celebrate our meeting in this time and in this space, for we meet on holy ground. Come, let us worship together. I invite you all to rise in body or in spirit for our opening hymn, number 105 in the gray hymnal, From Age to Age. Thank you all for sharing the joys and concerns that were on your hearts in this space. There are many concerns and sorrows in these days of ours, so it is even more important that we can be vulnerable and share them together in this space. So thank you all for doing so. And now for all of those that may be on our hearts that we have lost, I will light our candle of remembrance. Will you please now join me in the spirit of prayer? Holy Presence, you of many names, all of which signify love, hold us in this space this morning. Hear the prayers of joy and sorrow on our lips and in our hearts. Help us to witness to those around us, and help us witness to ourselves and our own needs for wholeness in this moment. May we be ever reminded that in this extraordinary time of our lives and the life of our world, that we can still love and be loved, that our presence with and for each other is a blessing, sometimes the only blessing we are able to offer, that we are capable of surviving so many challenges because we have each other and we have this beloved community. In the name of the great love that surpasses all understanding, Amen. Let us now enter into a time of silent reflection and meditation.
Today's reading is A House Called Tomorrow by Alberto Rios. You are not 15 or 12 or 17. You are 100 wild centuries and 15, bringing with you in every breath and in every step. Everyone has come before you, all the yous that you have been, the mothers of your mother, the fathers of your father. If someone in your family tree was trouble, 100 were not. The bad do not win, not finally, no matter how loud they are. We simply would not be here if that were so. You are made fundamentally from the good. With this knowledge, you never march alone. You are the breaking news of the century. You are the good who has come forward. Through it all, even if so many days feel otherwise. But think, when you as a child learned to speak, it's not that you didn't know words. It's that, from the centuries, you knew so many, and it's hard to choose the words that will be your own. For those centuries, we human beings bring with us the simple solutions and songs, the river bridges, the star charts, and song harmonies, all in service to a simple idea. That we can make a house called tomorrow. What we bring finally into the new day, every day, is ourselves. And that's all we need to start. That's everything we require to keep going. Look back only for as long as you must. Then go forward into the history you will make. Be good, then better. Write books, cure diseases, make us proud. Make yourself proud. And those who come before you, when you hear thunder, hear it as their applause.
Boy, that poem really speaks to this moment, doesn't it? It does for me. So the other day I was doom scrolling on Facebook, as I unfortunately have been doing too much these days, when I came across a post from a ministry colleague. I guess this was an attempt at some kind of levity, because we need that these days. So this post challenged the reader to the following. Quote, post the worst and yet accurate description you can imagine of a well-known movie and see if I can guess it. I scrolled through the responses, and there were some really funny ones in there. And so, because I'm going to talk a little bit about stories today, the stories we tell ourselves and the stories we choose to believe, I'm going to challenge you all to a bit of a pop quiz. I picked some pretty well-known movies. None of them are any less than 20 years old, so I'm hoping we'll see, but I'll give you the answers if you can't guess. I've got 5 examples, and if you know the answer, either shout it out or raise your hand, whatever makes you feel comfortable. So here's the first one. Again, this is a badly described but accurate description of a well-known movie. The first one is, 3 men try to impress their town by catching the largest fish they've ever seen. There you go. Is that what you're going to say too? Oh, what were you going to guess? Oh, that's not bad, but Jaws is the correct answer. All right, number 2. A typical office Christmas party becomes lively when crashed by some crazy Europeans looking for a good time. Anyone? Die Hard, yes, well done. All right, ladies, let's step it up. All the men are getting the answers. All right. Number 3, a girl, her brother, and her father fret about a giant ball. Any guesses? Nope. That one's not 20 years old, but that's okay. Any ideas? No? I'll give you this one. Star Wars. The Death Star. It's a giant ball. Girl, her brother, her father. Okay. Yeah, that one stumped me too, for the record. Two more. The town hero seeks the love of a beautiful girl and vows to kill the monster that holds her captive. No. Good guess, though. Any guesses? I'll read it one more time. The town hero seeks the love of a beautiful girl and vows to kill the monster that holds her captive. I'll give you a clue. It's an animated film. There you go. Yes. Right? In this telling, Gaston is the hero, which we know, if you've seen the movie, is not true. Finally, the last one. A boy abandoned by his family spends the holidays with two outcasts. There you go. Exactly. Thank you. Thank you for participating in my little pop quiz. I find this exercise fascinating because I've seen all these movies several times, if not many more times than that, and I have to admit these descriptions are technically correct, right? They're technically correct, but it's never how I would choose to describe these movies, which only goes to prove that it's all about how you tell the story. When it comes to the stories we tell, our perspective has so much to do with how we see the truth of that story. I mean, the truth is the truth, but the lens through which we view that truth can always be manipulated. And unfortunately, we know a lot about manipulated truth these days, don't we? Our political system is awash in it. Social media is drowning in it, and some of you may have read the recent news that Meta, the company that owns Facebook, has stopped employing their fact-checking tools, claiming that the online community should do the job of calling out untruths and misleading information. That if Meta were to do it, it would be in violation of the rights of free expression. I have lots to freely express about that, especially their timing on making this decision. But I bring that into this sermon about stories to make the point that increasingly it is getting harder and harder to rely on institutions and platforms to do the difficult and very necessary work of preserving the sanctity of truth. This week alone has been breathtaking in examples of that. The outrage machine that is our media platforms today is getting less and less concerned with truth and more concerned with, well, outrage and clicks and likes and attention. The 20th century German philosopher Hannah Arendt said this about truth and the spreading of misinformation in an interview back in 1974, and it feels very prescient right now. Again, this is Hannah Arendt from an interview in 1974. Quote, "If everybody always lies to you, the consequence is not that you believe the lies, but rather that nobody believes anything any longer. And a people that can no longer believe anything cannot make up their own minds. They are deprived not only of their capacity to act, but also of their capacity to think and to judge. And with such a people, you can do whatever you please." So we who are committed to truth and freedom and democracy and everything that our faith calls us to defend will need to work harder to know what is true and also to preserve what is true. We have gotten complacent, all of us as a nation, in absorbing what has been fed to us, and now we will have to do the careful work of finding out what is true for ourselves. That is true on a macro level across our nation right now, and it is also true on a micro level regarding each of us as individuals and our truths, our rights to believe and proclaim our own truths. And that is why the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves are so monumentally important when truth is up for debate in our world. So here's a story from my life that's disconnected from the news of today that I think will illuminate this. So many years ago, my first career before going into ministry was working in the theater in New York City. So years and years ago, in the beginning of that career, I interviewed for a stage management job with Blue Man Group. You all know Blue Man Group, the guys that paint themselves blue and do all the crazy stuff on stage? Yes, so I interviewed for a job to be one of their stage managers. And I went through several interviews, and I finally made it to the final round where it was between me and one other candidate. And I got to call the show one night. That's when you sit in the booth and tell the light and sound people when to go, and it's very exciting. So I got to do that, and I was so excited. I kept telling myself, this is why you're in New York. This is why you came here. This is supposed to launch your career. This was meant to be, and all the stuff you tell yourself when you're really excited, like, this is how I'm going to make it. This is it. This is it. Well, I didn't get the job. I was crushed. I was crushed, and my entire world that I had built in my mind, this story I was telling myself of what my life was going to look like, just came crashing down all around me. I told myself that I had utterly, utterly failed, that I didn't have what it took, that maybe this wasn't the profession for me after all. It made me question my whole decision to move to New York and do this work in the first place. Looking back on that time now, I shake my head at my younger self for several reasons. I was so young. I had my whole life ahead of me. How could I have fallen into such despair? How could I have so thoroughly believed that this story of failure, after not getting one job, how many of us have not gotten many jobs? I have not gotten many jobs since then. Yeah, exactly. Was my confidence really that shaky? Was my belief in myself so tenuous? Here's the truly funny irony about this story. Directly across the street from that theater where I didn't get the job was another bigger theater company. The theater company across the street was the one that sent Chorus Line and Hair to Broadway. The theater company that was across the street called itself the People's Theater. They regularly produced plays that examined the social justice issues of our time, and they stood proudly for speaking the truth. 2 years after not getting the Blue Man job, that theater company hired me. And I ended up spending 10 years there, 10 of the most powerful and meaningful professional years of my life that directly led to my calling in ministry. And that theater was the Public Theater, producer of Shakespeare in Central Park, among many other things. And working there taught me so much about community, about truth, and about justice. Working there did so much to help shape my beliefs and my faith. And that theater company, not Blue Man Group, is the reason I'm standing here today. Thank God Blue Man Group didn't hire me, right? Talk about reframing the story. I tell you that because the stories we tell ourselves are very powerful, very, very powerful. The narratives you build in your own mind about who you are and what you are capable of can do more to dictate your beliefs and your behaviors than anything else. I'm reminded of that old saying, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. Do you know that phrase? Yeah, and it's true, because your belief, the story you tell yourself about yourself, has far, far more power than we give it credit for. It was much harder for me back then to see the story that I had created versus the plain truth in front of me. And now that I'm older, and maybe a little bit wiser, I'm far better able to step back and ask myself, what is true here, and what is a story I am telling myself about what is true? And I invite you all to try it. When faced with an intractable problem, or an insecurity you can't shake, or a comment that someone said that just is bugging you and you can't let go of it, step back and ask yourself, what is true here, and what is a story I'm telling myself about what is true here? An easy way to start is to repeat the statements that you're making in your mind and ask, is that a fact? Or is that an opinion? A fact was I didn't get the Blue Man job. An opinion was that I wasn't good enough or smart enough to have that job. And I say all this because it is so important to dissect these things on a micro level because it is the everyday things, the small moments of self-observance and reflection that help us build that foundation of trust in ourselves and in our beliefs and in our capabilities. All of us have been severely tested by these trying times we are in. The world is in so much pain, and there is so much to be outraged about, and so much to be scared of. So the stories we tell ourselves right now about who we are and what we can do are monumentally important. Our ability to answer to this moment, to tell the truth, to fight for and defend those who will be increasingly made unsafe by our political climate, all of that has everything to do with the stories we tell ourselves about what we are able to do, how you personally believe in yourself and your ability to take action. So what stories are you carrying around in your head about who you are, about what you believe, about what you're willing to fight for? Do you believe the lie that you can't do anything to change what is happening, that you have no real agency, no voice that can make any kind of a difference? Do you feel helpless by the tidal wave, because it does feel like a tidal wave, of bad news that is out there right now? Do you feel so overwhelmed that you wouldn't even know where to start, even if you did decide to do something? Are you grateful for the safety and the security that you currently enjoy? And do you feel guilty that there are so many others who don't have that? Do those feelings make you want to slink away in silence, somewhere where you can hide and not have to feel bad about that truth? I have found myself telling myself all of those stories and more these last few weeks. So I'm not saying that to shame you all for your thoughts. I'm making my own confession. All of those stories have been populating in my head. And also, I think of my grandmother, who had a really hard life. She lived through the Depression. She lost 2 husbands. She had to raise 3 kids on her own in the 1950s without even a high school education. She's been gone for a while now, but I think of her looking down on me from, well, wherever, and just shaking her head. Not because she doesn't believe in me, but because she's disappointed in my inability to believe in myself, and my inability to believe in my own power to tell the truth and make a difference. Because yes, our families and our ancestors are huge parts of the stories we tell ourselves, just as much as our failures and our successes, our beliefs and our doubts. But friends, here's a truth for all of you. We are, each of us, free. Still free right now. Free to choose our own adventures in this life. Free to tell ourselves whatever story we want about who we are and what we can accomplish. So I invite you all, as I invite myself, to start paying better attention and to tell ourselves stories that make us grow and not shrink. Stories that make us willing to shout and not cower in silence. Stories that help us know that we are connected, that we are loved, and most importantly, that we are able to be a voice that the world needs right now. In our reading this morning, the poet Alberto Rios calls to us saying, quote, "You are the breaking news of the century. You are made fundamentally from the good. With this knowledge, you never march alone." You never march alone. That is the truest truth of them all. So tell yourself and believe that story. May it be so. Amen. I'd like to invite up Don Rolfe, who will introduce our offering.
I'm Don Rolfe with the annual fund drive. Our story has, as a key background, our community here. And one of the things that is very dear to this community here is the UU Urban Ministry. Our offering today is to support this community and the Urban Ministry. We hope you'll be generous with your donations.
I invite you to rise in body or in spirit for our closing hymn, number 1028 in the Teal hymnal, The Fire of Commitment. Friends, as we prepare to leave this place and return to the wider world, I urge you to believe in the story of that fire that burns within you, that fire that connects us all, and that fire that leads us to build the world we long to see. Go in peace with love for yourselves and one another. Amen.
Share a sacred trust to live in light, to do the right, and grow in loving care. Amen.
I will now extinguish our chalice, but may its light continue to shine in our hearts until we meet again.